Our next conversation brings together two industry leaders for a powerful discussion on inclusion, accessibility, and the future of equitable game design. Raashi Sikka, Ubisoft's Chief Diversity, Inclusion, Accessibility, and Social Impact Officer, joins Stan Pierre-Louis, President and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association and G4C board member, to share how Ubisoft is embedding inclusion at every level of its work, from internal culture to player-first experiences. Together, they'll explore Ubisoft's three-pillar approach: people and culture, product, and social impact, and how it's helping to create a more inclusive world in games for all, from players who enjoy the games to those that help create them. Join me to welcome Stan and Raashi.
Thank you, thank you. It's been such a powerful day of programming. I wish I knew how to lead a meditation because we'd start with that.
I can help you out.
Once Deepak Chopra's done it, like you don't follow up on Deepak. Anyway, I'm Stan Pierre-Louis, the President and CEO of the Entertainment Software Association. We serve as the voice and advocate for the US video game industry, and we spend a lot of time based in Washington talking to policymakers about the economic power of our industry and the cultural force. More and more, though, people are very interested in how we're affecting society in positive ways and how we're impacting well-being among players and larger communities. That's what makes this conversation so exciting. Raashi Sikka is the Chief Diversity, Inclusion, I gotta read it all because this is amazing.
A long one.
Chief Diversity, Inclusion, Accessibility, and Social Impact Officer at Ubisoft, and leads the strategic initiatives that enhance workplace diversity and foster a culture of well-being for their employees globally. And her efforts really empowered development teams to think about how to create inclusive and accessible experiences for their player communities. Raashi herself has a very, very long experience and deep background in working not only in the D&I space, but in corporate America. And so she really brings together an understanding of how companies operate and how they can use inclusion and accessibility to enhance the employee experience and the player community experience. So I'm very, very excited to hear more about her work at Ubisoft. So first, let me tell us about this long title, Chief Diversity, Inclusion, Accessibility, and Social Impact Officer. I tried to do like a mnemonic in my head for it, and it just didn't work out. But tell us, what are the roles and responsibilities in the various buckets of what you do?
It's a very long title. We've been trying to figure out a new name for our team, but we haven't been very successful there. So if any of you have ideas, I'm all ears. But very simply, the way I look at my role and my team's role at Ubisoft is to be a voice and a space for all of our employees to share their ideas, come together and co-create a culture and a future that we feel proud of, a culture where inclusion is embedded into everything that we do. And we use the power of the platform that we have with responsibility to create what we believe is our mission, enriching experiences for all our players worldwide. So that's really what we wake up every single day hoping to do and wanting to achieve.
Every great company have like core pillars, right, that they've got going on. And so I assume Ubisoft is the same, where you really think about how you do your work in various vectors.
Correct.
And so how do you think about that, whether you call them pillars or anything else like that? How do you think about that, and how does it work?
We do call them pillars. Okay. We do call them pillars. So I joined Ubisoft about 4.5 years ago, and it was the first time that my role was created. But in all honesty, the work had begun well before me. It predates me, especially our work on accessibility, and I know we'll talk a bit about that. Today. So when I joined the organization, some of the language that we were using, language is important, right? Like it brings a hook for people to hold on to. So we spoke about planting seeds for the future. And that's evolved now. We're in the 4th year of our journey of doing this work at scale. And we have 3 pillars. They're very simple. The first one is people and culture. And this is where we focus on really partnering with our HR teams who strive every day to build the most inclusive employee experience possible for our teams, our 17,000 employees worldwide. So our ERG program, how we think about performance, reviews, what we think about performance itself, promotions, succession planning, all of the work there, we really think about how can we do this with inclusion by design. So that's the approach that we try and take. The second pillar is our product, so product inclusion. And that's where the work around accessibility, so removal of barriers really sits, and how we think about telling inclusive stories and representing the diversity of our player base authentically. So that's where we work with our dev teams across the world to make that a reality. And our last pillar is social impact. And this, I know, might resonate with many of you, is really how do we use the power of our platform and the vast community that we have to do good in the world. One example that I'm particularly fond of is a concept called playrooms. These are rooms in hospitals. It's specifically in pediatric care centers that we've created, where children who are undergoing treatments and care in hospitals have an opportunity to engage with games and bring some joy in their lives. We have a few of them running across France, which is where our headquarters are, and in Ukraine, and we hope to launch them in a few other markets in the coming years.
Wow. That's a big commitment, and having seen how companies try to do it, the fact that you've been able to sustain it is very impressive. Let's zoom in on accessibility. Why has Ubisoft made that a priority? Because there's always more that you can do than time and resources.
Yeah.
Why accessibility?
Well, it's very simple. Players are at the heart of everything that we do, and we define accessibility as removing barriers so everyone can enjoy and experience our content to its fullest. That's really what our developers want. That's what we want. We want everyone to be able to enjoy the worlds that we create. And that's really why players are at the heart of everything we do. We make games, we create content for our players, and it's important for us to remove the barriers that we know exist, so more and more players can access our games and have fun, in the experiences that our developers are creating for them.
Yeah. This past March, many of you may have seen, there was an announcement about the Accessible Games Initiative. ESA helped convene the companies pulling this together, but Ubisoft was one of the 6 founding members of this and really cultivated the idea early on. Tell us a bit about the background and how that became a priority.
Yeah, it's so incredible. So David, he's not here, but David Tisserand is our head of accessibility at Ubisoft, and he started that work well before I joined the organization. It was a grassroots movement, like many of these movements tend to be in most big organizations. And about 5.5 years ago, I think, the conversation around, the Accessible Games Initiative started, coming to life. David, along with about 5 other industry members, came together and said, we need to have a common language and common taxonomy to talk about accessibility across the industry. And the core message really was transparency and clarity, right, for disabled players. They should know when they're buying a game what they're actually going to experience and whether they're going to have the barriers that might exist or not. So that was really the intention with this experience. It took a while, right? If it started 5.5 years ago and we just launched it a few months ago, it took a while to get all of these companies together to align and agree on common language, on common goals. And the ESA was so instrumental in helping that happen. There's a website now, accessiblegames.com, where you can go and find out which games have what kind of accessibility features. It's going to be common across the industry, and the tags are going to, when we say one thing, it's going to mean one thing. So I'm really excited about that, and we're entering the phase of implementation now across each of the member companies. So it's been a long journey, but something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, well, yeah. Every step helps.
Every step helps, yeah.
And you have to make it sustainable, right?
Exactly.
Which is a great opportunity.
And
for
patience. Sometimes it just takes time, right? Yeah. These things take time.
Let's move on to inclusion. We got to learn a little bit about this at ESA, about the work that's being done at Ubisoft. We have a portion of our website called Behind the Scenes, where we try to demonstrate to policymakers, the media, and others something about how games get made. All the movies and music, they have all these great behind the scenes things. And we wanted to make sure they understood that a lot goes into it. And in approaching Ubisoft, you shared with us some of the work done by one of your employee-driven groups around neurodiversity, which is exciting. We've got a video to kick that conversation off, so let's take a look. That was my cue.
In recent years, mental health and neurodiversity topics have come to the forefront, and on Just Dance, we really wanted to contribute by raising awareness on those topics and provide positive representations of neurodiversity. So when we came across the song Bang Bang My Neurodivergent Anthem by Galantis, we really saw an opportunity to do it right, and that's how the project started.
Nothing activates the brain so extensively as music. In fact, music and dance can echo perfectly with ADHD.
When I play Just Dance, it feels like it creates this equilibrium where my body and my outside surroundings all of a sudden match the same rhythm and speed that my brain is going at.
Regarding the choreography, we try to translate the different state of mind of ADHD in energy and movement.
The speed line represents your thoughts that are racing in your brain, just like you may experience in an ADHD brain. Ultimately, the racing thoughts line form the infinity loop sign, which is a symbol of neurodiversity.
For the inattentive part, we call it the dreamer. We made like more floaty move, round and also a bit slower. For the hyperactive part, like we call it internal chaos, the movements are faster and we go to the right, to the left, we're moving around just to show how the thought go to one ID and another ID.
In the last part of the song, the coach takes off the mask as to say to the world that it's okay to be ADHD.
It kind of resonated with me as almost like a metaphor. You're a square peg in a round hole, and you're trying so hard to be round. It's always going to be a struggle, and so to watch the coach take that mask off and it feels like embrace their true self was very cool.
Having the opportunity to display positively ADHD in a video game like Just Dance was really appealing for us. And we hope it will be appealing for many audiences and players. So as much as some of us as game developers felt represented as neurodivergent, we hope it will generate a similar feeling among our neurodivergent players. And beyond, that it will contribute to show a true and positive representation of ADHD.
So for those unfamiliar, this was fascinating to us. There's a song written by Christian Carlson of Galantis in honor of his diagnosis with ADHD to write this song. And in a really employee-driven moment, your Just Dance team put it into the game. So maybe talk to us about first your ERGs and how they help really drive these ideas within the studios to include these different ideas into games that now are global.
Yeah, one part of our culture that's really important to us is this notion of co-design, co-development. That's how we make video games, and we've carried that principle into how we do work with our employees and our employee resource groups. So the Just Dance team, if you've played Just Dance, you know what I mean. If you haven't, you should go and play the game because it's really fun. It gets you moving, it's fun, and it's joyful.
Next year,
we'll do something here. We'll all dance together. It's fabulous. But so that team has always been trying to incorporate different cultures, different identities through the dance styles and the maps that they launch every year. And this past year, they really wanted to do something around neurodiversity. And so they reached out to Pierre-Louis, who you saw in the video. He leads our work accessibility program at Ubisoft on my team, and said, what can we do? How do we get this going? And Pierre founded our neurodiversity ERG about 4.5 years ago. So Pierre said, this is a perfect moment to involve the community in co-designing what a neurodiversity map could look like for Just Dance. That's kind of how it started. So we formed a small internal consulting group with our ERGs, with Pierre, with members from Just Dance, some of them who you saw speaking, some of our players, and that eventually became this partnership and this collaboration that we launched last year. So we're really excited about this. This is, I think, a perfect example of what we mean by inclusive product and our approach towards designing products that are meaningful for our players and for our teams, because our teams are our players as well.
And for those unaware, there's actually a Just Dance team, not just a studio, but they just dance. And they do different events, and they're phenomenal. I had this weird experience where it was like a late night event, Ubisoft was throwing it, and they started one of those dance lines, and everyone was having fun. I thought, I'm gonna get in there, it's like 2 in the morning. And then I realized, oh, this is the Just Dance team. They look great, get out. This is before I had Aubrey Quinn, but I self-moderated on that one. But they are phenomenal.
Everyone's welcome in those dance
They are totally welcoming,
welcome.
but I was like, not on video. Not in the age of video. Beyond this particular example, what are some other ways companies can think about making stories that are authentic to the players and maybe even to the employees and how they feel and things are going through?
Absolutely. I think one, listening to your employees is, I think, the number one piece that I would say. Second is listening to your players. So we do a lot of play tests, with disabled players, if we're talking about accessibility, with players of different cultural backgrounds, ethnicities, gender identities, you name it, based on the kind of content that we're trying to make. So really involving players and letting them be the heart and the voice and enabling them to provide perspective that creates depth in the characters that you're trying to create or the stories that you're trying to tell. But if you're a smaller studio that might not have the same means and resources, I'll give a shout out to our friends at Gina Davis Institute. I don't know if Diane's here. Yay, Diane, right? You just entered right now. Who are doing some phenomenal work. We're working with them along with a lot of other companies that are present here and otherwise, in creating tools and playbooks that developers across the world can use when it comes to inclusive design and representation of different characters and different people.
Yeah, that's incredible. One last thing I want to just ask you about. Obviously we're living in complicated and challenging times as an industry and as a society, and it's easy for ideas like accessibility and inclusion to really, be cast in a different light or be in a position where it looks like it's competing for resources. How do companies put it into their culture so that they're sustainable and ongoing? Because we know it's important to the player community, we know it's important in society at large, and you don't want it to get lost. So what are some ways companies can think about keeping it in their culture but in a sustainable way?
Yeah. I think first, let's just acknowledge the fact that we're facing a lot of headwinds right now, right? The reality is there is no humanity without diversity. That's just a fact. Inclusion is a choice that we all make every single day, right? When we show up and we speak with people, connect with people, do this work. When it comes to creating systemic, sustainable opportunities within an organization, it goes back to the culture of your organization, really understanding what that looks like, what are the motivators, what are the blockers in a company's culture, and being really, really focused and trying to embed as much of the work that you can do rather than having it as an add-on, because the moment it's an add-on, it's really easy to cut it off the budget line or the list of priorities. The second piece I would say is this notion of progress over perfection. It's a mantra that I repeat over and over and over and over again to teams that I work with. You mentioned it earlier, Stan, it's small steps. It's those small daily steps that you take that lead to progress. Perfection is always so hard to achieve, and if you're striving for perfection, it's most likely not going to happen overnight. So take those small steps and think about progress over perfection is what I would say would be the second takeaway.
Well, thank you for your insights and for the work you do, and thank each of you for the work you do advancing our industry.
Yes,
really appreciate this. Thanks for the conversation.